The incense burned thick in St. Mary's Cathedral that Sunday morning, but Adaeze couldn't smell it anymore. She'd been kneeling for 20 minutes, rosary beads cutting into her palms, listening to Father Okonkwo's sermon about the sanctity of tradition and the perils of straying from God's intended path. Her mother sat rigid beside her, back straight as the pews themselves, lips moving in silent prayer. "When we abandon our heritage," the priest intoned, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling, "when we chase after foreign ways and foreign faces, we invite darkness into our souls." Adaeze's phone vibrated in her purse. Once, twice, 3 times. Her mother's hand shot out, gripping her wrist with surprising strength. "Don't you dare," she whispered, her English sharp despite the Igbo accent that colored every syllable. But Adaeze had already seen the name flash on her screen. Minjun. 3 months. That's how long she'd been living a double life, and the weight of it was crushing her from the inside out. It had started at the university library, of all places. Adaeze had been researching international business law, buried under a mountain of textbooks in the quiet section, when a shadow fell across her notes. "You're in my seat." She'd looked up, ready to argue, and found herself staring into the coldest eyes she'd ever seen. Not cold like ice, cold like obsidian, like something ancient and dangerous. The man was Korean, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than her tuition, with silver rings on 3 fingers and a scar that traced from his temple to his jaw. "There are 50 empty seats," she'd said, meeting his gaze without flinching. Her father had taught her never to show fear, even when she felt it burning in her chest. His lips had curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "I like this one." "Well, I was here first. I don't really care." She should have left. Should have gathered her books and found another table. But something in his arrogance had ignited her temper, and Adaeze Okafor had never backed down from a challenge in her 24 years of life. "Then I guess we're sharing." He'd studied her for a long moment, then pulled out the chair across from her and sat down, never breaking eye contact. "Minjun," he'd said finally. "I didn't ask. I'm telling you anyway. Because you're going to need to know my name." Presumptuous. Observant. That's how it had begun. With hostility and attraction twisted together so tightly she couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Now, 3 months later, she stood in the church parking lot, her mother's car already pulling away, leaving her with explicit instructions to wait for her cousin Chioma to pick her up. Instead, Adaeze walked 3 blocks to where a black Mercedes waited in the shadows of an alley, engine purring like a predator. Minjun leaned against the driver's side door, scrolling through his phone. He wore sunglasses despite the overcast sky, and his jaw was tight with tension. When he saw her approaching, he straightened, and something in his expression softened, barely, but enough. "You're late," he said. "Church ran long." Father Okonkwo was particularly inspired today. She stopped a few feet away, suddenly uncertain. They'd been meeting like this for months, but the guilt never got easier. He preached about the dangers of losing yourself to foreign influences. Minjun's laugh was bitter. "My Omoni says the same thing. That African girl is going to ruin you, Minjun. The family won't accept it. Uncle won't accept it. Your uncle." Adaeze wrapped her arms around herself. She knew who his uncle was. Everyone in Seoul's underground knew about Don Park Jae-sung, the man who controlled half the city's criminal empire with an iron fist and ancient codes of honor. "Does he know about me?" Minjun's silence was answer enough. "He knows. He knows I'm seeing someone. He doesn't know who. Yet?" Minjun removed his sunglasses, and she saw the bruise blooming purple beneath his left eye. "We need to talk. Get in the car." They drove to the outskirts of the city, to an abandoned warehouse district where no one would think to look for them. Minjun parked inside an empty building, the metal door groaning shut behind them, sealing them in shadow. "What happened to your face?" Adaeze demanded, reaching for him, but he caught her wrist. "My cousin Juan. He saw us last week, outside the restaurant in Gangnam. He told my uncle that I was with a black woman." Minjun's grip tightened, not enough to hurt, but enough to anchor. "Do you understand what that means?" "I understand that your family is racist." "It's not just racism, Adaeze. It's everything. The code. The bloodline. The Jopik doesn't mix with outsiders, ever. And you're not just an outsider, you're. He struggled with the words. My uncle called you a corruption. Said I was spitting on my father's grave by touching you. The words hit like physical blows. Adaeze yanked her hand free, turning away so he wouldn't see the tears burning her eyes. Then why are you here? Why do you keep calling me, texting me, showing up at my apartment at midnight like you can't breathe without seeing me? Because I can't. The confession came out raw, stripped of all his usual control. I tried to stay away. For 2 weeks after we first met, I didn't come back to the library. I told myself you were a distraction, a complication I couldn't afford. But I kept thinking about the way you looked at me, like you could see exactly who I was and weren't afraid. Maybe I should have been. Maybe. He moved behind her, close enough that she could feel his heat but not touching. My uncle wants to meet you. Adaeze spun around. What? He wants to meet the woman who's making me forget my place. His words. Minjun's jaw clenched. It's not a request. It's a summons. Tomorrow night. His estate. And if I refuse? Then he'll assume you're not worth protecting. And he'll make you disappear. The casual way he said it made her blood run cold. You're asking me to walk into the lion's den. I'm asking you to trust me. Minjun finally touched her, his hand cupping her face with a gentleness that contradicted everything else about him. I won't let him hurt you. But I need you to understand what we're up against. This isn't Romeo and Juliet, Adaeze. This is war. And in my world, wars end in blood. She should have walked away. Should have called her mother, confessed everything, accepted whatever punishment came. Instead, she leaned into his touch and whispered, "What time?" Her mother knew something was wrong. Adaeze could see it in the way she watched her over dinner that night, the way her questions lingered too long, searching for cracks in the facade. You've been distracted lately, her mother said, passing the jollof rice. Is everything all right at school? Fine, Mama. Just busy with exams. Her mother didn't sound convinced. Your father called today. From Lagos. He wants to know when you're coming home for your cousin's wedding. Adaeze's stomach dropped. I can't go right now. I have. You'll make time. Family comes first, Adaeze. Always. Her mother's voice carried the weight of generations. I worry about you here, so far from home, in this strange place. You need to remember who you are. Where you come from. I know who I am. Do you? Her mother set down her fork, fixing her with a look that had made Adaeze confess to every childhood misdeed. Because lately, I'm not so sure. You sneak out. You lie about where you're going. You think I don't notice, but I'm your mother. I notice everything. Mama, is it a man? The question hung in the air between them, sharp as broken glass. Adaeze could have denied it. Should have denied it. Instead, she met her mother's eyes and said nothing, which was answer enough. Her mother's face crumpled. Oh, Adaeze, what have you done? That night, alone in her apartment, Adaeze stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Dark skin, natural hair cropped close to her scalp, her father's nose and her mother's defiant chin. She thought about Father Okonkwo's sermon, about sin and tradition and staying in your lane. She thought about Minjun's uncle calling her a corruption, as if her very existence was an offense. Her phone buzzed. A message from Minjun, tomorrow. 8 p.m. I'll send a car. Wear something that shows you're not afraid of them. And below that, I meant what I said. I won't let them hurt you. Even if it costs me everything. Adaeze typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on, I'll be ready. But as she lay in bed that night, sleep refusing to come, she wondered if she'd just signed her own death warrant. In Korean dramas, the girl always survived. In real life, she knew, the ending was rarely so kind. Especially when you dared to love across lines that were never meant to be crossed. The car arrived exactly at 8. Not a Mercedes this time, but a black SUV with tinted windows and a driver who didn't speak, didn't smile, didn't even look at her as she climbed into the back seat. They drove for 40 minutes, leaving the city behind, winding up into the hills where Seoul's elite hid their secrets behind high walls and security gates. Dawn Park's estate sprawled across 5 acres, a fortress disguised as a home. Traditional Korean architecture blended with modern security, cameras on every corner, guards stationed at intervals, their bulges beneath their suits suggesting they were heavily armed. The car stopped in front of the main house. The driver opened her door, gesturing for her to exit. Adaeze stepped out, her heels clicking on stone, and found Minjun waiting at the entrance. He wore a suit she'd never seen before, formal and severe, his hair slicked back, every inch the Jopic prince. But when their eyes met, she saw the fear he was trying to hide. "Last chance to run," he murmured as she climbed the steps. "I don't run. I know. That's what terrifies me." The doors opened before them, revealing a vast entrance hall decorated with artwork that probably cost more than her parents' house in Lagos. And then Don Park laughed, a sound like gravel shifting. "You have courage, I'll give you that." Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. He moved closer, studying her with the intensity of a predator sizing up prey. "You want to understand our ways? Very well. In the Jopic, blood is everything. Loyalty is everything. My nephew's father, my brother, died protecting this family. Minjun carries that debt. His life isn't his own to give away to African girls with pretty faces and bold mouths. His life is exactly his own," Adaeze countered. "You don't own him. Don't I?" The Don's smile widened. "Minjun, come here." Minjun moved forward, his expression blank, and Adaeze's heart sank as she watched him submit, bowing his head to his uncle. "Tell her," the Don commanded. "Tell her what you are." Minjun's voice came out flat, rehearsed. "I am Park Minjun, second heir to the Park family, sworn to uphold our honor and traditions above all else, including my own desires. And if I ordered you to never see her again?" A pause. "Then, I would obey." The words cut deeper than any blade. Adaeze felt her world tilting, everything she'd believed about them crumbling. The Don nodded, satisfied. "You see, Miss Okafor? This is the reality. My nephew might desire you, might even imagine himself in love with you. But when it matters, when I call, he answers. He always will. Then why am I here?" Adaeze's voice shook despite her efforts to control it. "Why summon me just to prove a point? Because I wanted to see if you'd come. Wanted to see if you were brave or stupid." The Don turned away, heading toward a side room. "As it happens, you're both. Guards, show Miss Okafor out. Minjun, you stay. We have business to discuss." It was a dismissal. Total and complete. Adaeze looked at Minjun, silently begging him to say something, do something, prove his uncle wrong. But he stood frozen, obedient, exactly as he'd been trained to be. So she left. Let the silent guards escort her back to the SUV. Let them drive her back to the city. Let herself into her apartment alone. And only then, behind locked doors, did she let herself break. She didn't hear from Minjun for 3 days. No calls. No texts. Nothing but silence that confirmed everything the Don had said. Her mother called twice, but Adaeze let it go to voicemail. Chioma stopped by with food, took one look at her face, and demanded to know who she needed to curse out. But Adaeze couldn't bring herself to explain. On the 4th day, her phone finally rang. Minjun's name flashed on the screen. She almost didn't answer. But in the end, she couldn't help herself. "What?" Her voice came out harsh, defensive. "I'm outside your building. Come down. Go to hell. Adaeze, please. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." She should have hung up. Should have blocked his number and moved on with her life. Instead, she pulled on a jacket and went downstairs. He leaned against his Mercedes, looking like he hadn't slept in days. When he saw her, he straightened, and she saw the desperation in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what? Proving your uncle right? Showing me exactly where I stand? For not fighting harder? For freezing when I should have defended you?" He took a step closer. "But I need you to understand something. In that room, with my uncle watching, if I'd defied him, if I'd chosen you openly, he would have killed you. Right there. And made me watch." The certainty in his voice made her pause. "You don't know that." "I do. Because he's done it before. When my father fell in love with someone the family didn't approve of, my uncle made an example of her. They never found her body." Minjun's hands clenched into fists. I played the obedient nephew because it was the only way to keep you alive long enough to figure out our next move. What next move? Minjun, this is insane. We should just run away with me. The words hung between them, impossible and tempting. What? Leave Seoul. Leave Korea. We'll go somewhere my uncle can't reach. Start over. You're crazy. He's a crime lord. There's nowhere he can't reach. Then we'll keep running. Forever if we have to. He grabbed her hands, pulling her close. I know what I said in there. I know I hurt you. But I meant what I texted you. You're worth everything, Adaeze. Even if it costs me my family, my name, my life. I choose you. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly it physically hurt. My mother knows, she whispered. About us. She's devastated. Mine too. She called me a disgrace to my father's memory. They stood there in the street, two people torn between worlds, between duties and desires, between who they were supposed to be and who they wanted to become. I need time, Adaeze said finally. To think. To figure out if I'm strong enough for this. Take all the time you need. But Adaeze. He cupped her face, thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. I'm not giving up on us. Even if you do. Then he kissed her, deep and desperate and defiant, like a declaration of war against everyone who'd tried to keep them apart. When he finally pulled away, leaving her breathless and confused and terrified, he whispered, I have a plan. A way out. But it's dangerous, and you need to trust me completely. What kind of plan? The kind that ends with us free or us dead. No middle ground. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face went pale. What is it? My uncle. He's summoning me again. Minjun looked at her with something like agony. And this time, he wants me to bring proof that I've ended things with you. Permanently. The air in Minjun's apartment tasted like fear and cigarette smoke. Adaeze paced the living room, arms wrapped tight around herself, while Minjun stood at the window overlooking the Han River, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Korean in a tone she'd never heard from him before, pleading, almost desperate. When he finally hung up, his shoulders sagged. What did he say? She asked. He wants proof by Friday. A photograph of your broken face, or... He couldn't finish. Or he'll do it himself. Not himself. He never dirties his own hands. Minjun turned to face her, and she saw the storm raging behind his eyes. He'll send Juan. My cousin would enjoy it. He's hated you from the moment he found out about us. Says you're making the family weak. Adaeze's laugh came out brittle. Me? I'm a law student from Lagos. I have no power here. That's where you're wrong. You have the one power that terrifies men like my uncle. You make me question everything I was raised to believe. He crossed to her, taking her hands. That photograph he wants? We're going to give it to him. But not the way he expects. Minjun, listen to me. I have a contact, a makeup artist who works with the film industry. She owes me a favor. She can make injuries look real, photograph you like you've been beaten, and we'll send that to my uncle. Buy ourselves time. Time for what? To run? Your uncle has connections everywhere. Not everywhere. Minjun pulled out his phone, showing her a document in Korean. My father, before he died, he didn't trust my uncle completely. He set up accounts outside the country. Safety nets. I found the documentation 2 years ago, hidden in his things my mother kept. Singapore. Malaysia. Accounts my uncle doesn't know exist, with enough money to disappear. Adaeze stared at the screen, trying to process. You're serious. You actually want to run. I want to live. With you. Is that so impossible? My family will never accept me. Just like mine will never accept you. We both know that. His grip tightened. So the question is, do we sacrifice ourselves for families who would rather see us miserable than together? Or do we choose each other? It was the same question she'd been asking herself for months, keeping her awake at night, eating her alive from the inside. Before she could answer, her phone rang. Her mother's name flashed on screen. Don't answer it, Minjun said. But Adaeze was already pressing accept, stepping away. Mama? Where are you? Her mother's voice was tight with controlled fury. I went to your apartment. You weren't there. I'm studying. At a friend's. Don't lie to me, Adaeze. Not anymore. A heavy breath. I spoke to your landlord. He said he saw you leaving with a Korean man. Multiple times. Late at night. Adaeze closed her eyes. Mama, is it true? Are you seeing one of them? The disgust in her mother's voice cut deep. His name is Minjun. And yes, I'm seeing him. The silence that followed felt like falling. How could you, her mother finally whispered. After everything we taught you. After all our sacrifices bringing you here to study, to make something of yourself, you throw it away for some foreign man? Do you know what people will say? What the church will say? I love him. You don't know what love is. You know lust. Infatuation. The kind of foolishness that destroys lives. Her mother's voice cracked. I'm booking you a flight home. Tomorrow. You're coming back to Lagos, away from this madness. I'm not going. Yes, you are. Your father agrees. We're sending your brother to escort you if necessary. I'm 24 years old, Mama. You can't force me. Watch me. You think you're grown, but you're still my daughter. Still my responsibility. And I will not let you ruin yourself. Her mother's breathing was ragged now, tears evident even through the phone. That man, whoever he is not for you. He's not your people, not your faith, not your future. And if you continue this, you will be dead to this family. Do you understand me? Dead. The line went silent. Her mother had hung up. Adaeze stood frozen, phone still pressed to her ear, feeling like the ground had opened up beneath her feet. Minjun appeared beside her, gently taking the phone from her trembling hand. What did she say? She's disowning me. If I don't come home tomorrow, I'm dead to her. To all of them. I'm sorry. Are you? The words came out sharper than intended. Because you asked me to choose you over them. Well, here's your answer. They've already made the choice for me. She meant it to sound defiant, but it came out broken instead. They sat on his couch until dawn, not speaking, just existing in the heavy silence of two people watching their worlds burn. At some point, Minjun made tea she didn't drink. At another, she cried and he held her, his own tears dampening her hair. When morning light finally crept through the windows, they were still tangled together, exhausted and terrified and somehow still determined. The makeup artist, Adaeze said, her voice hoarse. Call her. The woman who arrived at Minjun's apartment 3 hours later looked nothing like Adaeze expected. She was young, maybe 30, with pink hair and tattoos snaking up both arms. She introduced herself as Jiyeon and immediately got to work, laying out a professional kit that looked like it belonged in a horror film. Broken nose? She asked clinically, studying Adaeze's face. Split lip? Bruised eye? What's the story we're selling? Make it look like someone tried to kill her but stopped, Minjun said quietly. My uncle needs to believe I followed orders. Jiyeon nodded, pulling out brushes and color palettes. This will take about 2 hours. And, just so you know, I'm doing this, because your father once saved my brother's life. But after this, we're even. I don't want any part of your family's business. Understood. As Jiyeon worked, transforming Adaeze's face into a canvas of fictional violence, they discussed the plan. The photograph would be sent to Don Park that evening. They'd tell him Adaeze had been taken care of, dumped somewhere far from Seoul. Meanwhile, they'd use the weekend to liquidate Minjun's secret accounts and book flights to Singapore. What about your cousin? Adaeze asked, wincing as Jiyeon applied something cold to her cheek. Hwan. Won't he want to verify? Hwan's in Busan until Monday on business. By the time he gets back, we'll be gone. And if your uncle doesn't believe the photograph? Then we run sooner. Tonight if we have to. Jiyeon paused in her work, looking between them. You two really love each other, huh? Enough to throw away everything. Everything we're throwing away was never really ours to begin with, Minjun said softly. When Jiyeon finished, Adaeze looked in the mirror and barely recognized herself. Purple and black bruises bloomed across her face, one eye swollen shut, lip split and bloody. It looked horrifyingly real. Don't touch your face, Jiyeon warned. The makeup will smudge. And don't let water near it until after the photos. They staged the shots in an empty alley behind a warehouse, the same one where Minjun had first told her about his uncle's summons. Adaeze lay crumpled on the ground while Minjun photographed her from different angles, his hands shaking so badly he had to retake several shots. "Enough," he finally said, voice thick. I can't do this anymore." They went back to his apartment, where Ji-yeon helped Adaeze remove the makeup. Minjun sent 2 photographs to his uncle with a single line of text in Korean. Then they waited. The Don's response came within the hour. Good. Now forget she existed. He believed it, Adaeze breathed. He wanted to believe it. Wanted me back in line. Minjun pulled her close, burying his face in her neck. We have maybe 48 hours before he starts asking questions. Before someone sees you alive somewhere and word gets back. Then we move fast. They spent that day liquidating everything. Minjun transferred funds from his father's hidden accounts, converted assets to cryptocurrency, booked flights under false names through a contact who specialized in helping people disappear. Adaeze packed a single bag clothes, documents, her grandmother's rosary she couldn't bear to leave behind. That night, they lay in Minjun's bed, neither of them sleeping, both acutely aware that this might be their last night in Korea. Their last night before becoming permanent fugitives. Do you regret it? Minjun asked in the darkness. Meeting me? All of this. Adaeze thought about her mother's tears, Father Okonkwo's sermons, the life she'd imagined for herself before an arrogant Korean man claimed her library seat. She thought about the price they were both paying, the families they'd never see again, the homes they were abandoning. No, she said finally. I regret that it had to be this hard. But I don't regret you. His arms tightened around her. When we get to Singapore, we'll find a small apartment. You can finish your degree online. I'll find work, legal work. I'm done with my uncle's business. We'll build something new. Something ours. And if they find us? Then we run again. And again. As many times as it takes. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. I told you before, I'm choosing you. Every time. No matter what. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. At 3 a.m, Minjun's phone exploded with messages. He sat up, reading through them, and Adaeze watched the color drain from his face. What is it? Hwan. He came back early from Busan. He's asking questions, demanding to see the body. There is no body. I know. And he knows I'm lying. Minjun was already out of bed, pulling on clothes. We need to leave. Now. Not tomorrow, right now. They threw everything into bags, moving with frantic efficiency. Passports, money, documents. Everything else was abandoned. They were almost to the door when it crashed open. Hwan stood in the entrance, flanked by 3 other men Adaeze didn't recognize. He was younger than Minjun, maybe 25, with cold eyes and a smile that promised violence. Cousin, he said, his English heavily accented but clear. Going somewhere? Minjun stepped in front of Adaeze. Get out of my apartment. Your apartment? You mean the apartment Uncle pays for? The apartment that belongs to the family. Hwan's gaze slid to Adaeze. And look. The dead girl. Walking, breathing. How miraculous. I'll deal with Uncle. Uncle already knows. I called him the moment I got your photo. Told him it looked fake. Too clean. Not enough blood. Hwan pulled out a gun, casual, almost lazy. He was disappointed, Minjun. Said you'd finally broken his heart. Chose a foreign whore over your own blood. Don't call her that. What should I call her? Your girlfriend? Your mistake? The reason you're about to die. The words hung in the air, sharp as the blade Adaeze now saw one of the other men carrying. Uncle sent us with instructions, Hwan continued. Kill the girl. Make it hurt. And make you watch before we kill you too. Says it's mercy, at least you'll die together. Minjun's hand moved toward his jacket, but Hwan's gun was already aimed at his chest. Don't. You might be fast, but you're not faster than a bullet. Adaeze's mind raced. They were trapped. 3 armed men between them and the exit. No windows. They were on the 20th floor. No weapons except. Her hand closed around the knife block on the kitchen counter behind her. Heavy. Solid. You don't have to do this, Minjun said, and Adaeze heard the calculation in his voice. He was stalling. Hwan, we were friends once. Before all this family politics. We were never friends. You were always Uncle's favorite. Always the heir. I was just the spare, the one who did the dirty work while you got the glory. Juan's finger moved to the trigger. But not anymore. After tonight, I'll be the loyal one. The one who protected the family when you betrayed it. Such loyalty, Adaeze said, surprising herself. For sets of eyes turned to her. Murdering your own cousin. I'm sure that's exactly what the family code teaches. You don't get to speak about our code, outsider. Why? Because I'm African? Because I'm not Korean enough for your pure bloodlines. She laughed, bitter and sharp. Your precious traditions are just excuses for cowards. Your uncle is terrified that if Minjun is allowed to choose love, other people might start questioning why they follow an old man's orders like slaves. Adaeze, Minjun's warning came too late. Juan's face twisted with rage. He pointed the gun at her. You want to die first? Fine. I'll make it slow. He moved toward her, and Minjun lunged, but one of the other men grabbed him, slamming him against the wall. The sound of flesh hitting plaster made Adaeze's stomach turn. Juan kept coming, gun steady, and Adaeze's hand tightened on the knife block, calculating distance, angles, chances. The window exploded. Glass rained down as men in tactical gear crashed through, moving with military precision. Shouting in Korean and English, police. Drop your weapons. Chaos erupted. Juan spun, firing wildly. One of his men went down, hit by return fire. Minjun broke free, tackling another guard. In the confusion, Adaeze swung the knife block with everything she had, catching Juan across the temple. He crumpled, gun skittering across the floor. Then hands grabbed her, gentle but firm, pulling her away from the violence. Someone was shouting her name, but the words sounded underwater, distant. When the world finally stopped spinning, she found herself in the hallway, wrapped in a shock blanket, with Minjun beside her. Blood streamed from a cut above his eye, but he was alive. They were both alive. What? She managed. What happened? A detective approached, Korean, middle-aged, with kind eyes. Park Minjun? I'm Detective Kim. Your father's old friend. I've been watching your uncle's organization for 3 years, waiting for enough evidence to move against him. He glanced at Adaeze. When I heard about you, about his order to kill civilians, that gave me the justification I needed. The warrant came through 2 hours ago. We've been following Juan since he left your uncle's estate. My uncle. Being arrested as we speak. Him and 23 other members of his organization. Detective Kim smiled grimly. It's over. The next weeks passed in a blur of police statements, safe houses, and debriefings. Don Park and his entire network had been dismantled in one night, years of evidence, finally used to tear down an empire built on blood and fear. Juan survived, but would spend the next 30 years in prison. The Don himself, facing multiple murder charges, would die behind bars. Minjun's mother called once, her voice cold and formal, to tell him he was no longer her son. She hung up before he could respond. Adaeze's family, complicated. Her father eventually called, voice heavy with disappointment but lacking the outright hatred she'd feared. You've made your choice, he said. We don't agree with it, but you're alive. For that, I'm grateful. Your mother needs more time. It wasn't acceptance. But it was something. A door left slightly ajar instead of slammed shut. 6 months later, they stood on a beach in Malaysia, watching the sun set over water the color of melted gold. Minjun had found work as a consultant for a security firm, legitimate, legal, everything his uncle wasn't. Adaeze had re-enrolled in school, finishing her law degree online while working part-time at a local nonprofit. They'd rented a small apartment near the water. Modest. Simple. Nothing like the life Minjun had been groomed for or the future Adaeze had imagined. But it was theirs. My mother sent a letter, Adaeze said, holding up the envelope that had arrived that morning. She says she's praying for me. Not for us, just me. That I'll come to my senses. Progress? Minjun asked. Of a sort. She leaned into him, and he wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Your uncle's trial starts next month. They want you to testify. I know. His jaw tightened. Are you coming with me? Do you even have to ask? They stood there as darkness fell, Two people who'd sacrificed everything to be together. The church called their love a sin. Their families called it a betrayal. The world looked at them and saw only the things that made them different: skin color, culture, background. But none of that mattered. Not really. Because they'd looked at each other and seen something more precious than tradition or bloodlines or anyone's approval. They'd seen home. And that, in the end, was the only destiny worth fighting for. 3 years later, at a small courthouse in Kuala Lumpur, Adaeze Okafor and Park Min-joon stood before a judge and promised forever. No church would marry them, so they settled for civil law and each other's hands clasped tight. Her father attended via video call, silent but present. Min-joon's mother did not call at all. But Ji-yeon was there, pink hair now blue, serving as their witness. Detective Kim sent flowers with a note. Your father would have been proud. Not of the running, of the fighting back. And when the judge pronounced them married, when Min-joon kissed her like she was air itself, Adaeze felt something settle in her chest. Not peace exactly. Their lives would never be simple. Their families would likely never fully accept this, but something close to it. Certainty. Purpose. The knowledge that they'd chosen right. Later, at the tiny restaurant where they'd held their reception dinner for 12, Min-joon raised a glass. To everyone who said we'd fail. Thank you for underestimating us. And to everyone who helped us survive, Adaeze added. Thank you for seeing us as human. They drank to both, to the haters and the helpers, to the churches that rejected them and the laws that protected them, to families who'd turned away and friends who'd stood firm. Because in the end, love wasn't about grand gestures or perfect endings. It was about choosing someone every single day, even when the world told you to choose differently. It was about fighting for each other when everyone else gave up. It was about being brave enough to write your own destiny, even when everyone else had already written yours. And theirs? It was just beginning. The end.